Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi
hello.
there.
Welcome to a new and returning edition of the 13th Dimension, the first one of 2025. And this show I have been waiting for the longest time, and I have been wanting to have a conversation of aliens and UFOs and all kinds of crazy stuff all over the world. And I've got three wonderful people to talk to about this because I've talked to all three of them in some capacity, but never, well, with the exception of Philip, but never a full show about
Mm.
this. And now we are going to have a panel that I've been wanting to do for the longest time. And I am really excited. We have below me Maryam. She is uh, a host, a co host. I never know which one it is. I call you the main instigator. Myth or Mystery, which is currently on hiatus, but she also does other things. I remember seeing a mediation uh, show that you have been doing on your channel. And also over here we have Kat Hobson. She is the host of Fate Magazine Radio and Paranormal Experienced. And then below her is Philip Gibson. He doesn't host a show, but he is on a lot of shows. How are you guys doing?
Doing
I'm
good.
well. Yeah.
Doing well. Yes.
So before we get into the discussion, I would like all three of you to kind of introduce yourselves a little more than what I just did. Kat, let's start with you.
Well, that's a scary thing to just cut me loose with, but I've been the host of Paranormal Experience for 10 years now, and I love it. I've been the host of Fate Magazine Radio for about 5, and I love that too. And I've been a paranormal investigator. Well, I've been an experiencer all my life, but I've been an investigator probably 20 years, I guess, maybe 15. And as far as like taking things out with me to go and try to capture evidence, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, as everybody that doesn't knows. But I've always been interested in UFOs, the
Mm.
history of them, the mystery of them, the the guys that I got to meet by covering the different alien kinds and other. I do the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. I am a pending member of the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies out of Huntsville, Alabama, and can't believe they're going to let me in. I'm just like, woo, boy, how did I manage
Awesome.
that? So I really enjoy this topic. I like it. I got to interview Jacques Vallée this year and or last year, and he had written a book on Trinity, which was the pre-crash. It was the first crash.
Mm.
And so that was an interesting conversation because I had just had surgery and was wacky doodle. And and he couldn't put it off. So if you're ever going to interview somebody that important, it's always good, I guess, to be wacky doodle. But there's that. That's how I got into all this stuff, all this weirdness and funness.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Philip?
Okay. I'm Phil. I'm a paranormal investigator slash researcher and also an astrophotographer. Um, I've been researching the paranormal since about 2017. I've been interested in it for a lot longer. Obviously, growing up watching the movie Poltergeist kind of got the juices flowing a little bit to kind of put me, give me that interest in the paranormal. Then finally, around 20, watching stuff on TV, Ghost Hunters back in, 2006 and 2007, watching, the episode of the Lighthouse episode from St. Augustine kind of really encouraged me to want to go out and actually investigate the paranormal. And finally, in 2017, my friend and I created, co-founded a team together, and we started investigating the paranormal. We're no longer a team, pretty much solo now. But we created a team called Heart City Paranormal back in 2017. We disbanded about 2 years ago. Still remain friends though. We just went different paths. Um, and then I do astrophotography as well. I've been doing that for about little over a year now. Now it's a hobby that obviously is more prone to the weather. We gotta you gotta have clear skies. Not like paranormal investigating. You just go to a location whenever you want to.
Yeah.
You gotta kind of you're at the beck and call of the weather. So when the weather's not good like it's been lately here in northern Indiana, we've had pretty much a straight cloud bank or a bank of clouds since November 2nd. Which is the last time I've actually been out to do some photographing, and so it's been so I've kind of got use that time to get back and to do some paranormal investigating and stuff. But Yeah, I don't have any podcasts. Like Jeremy said, we had a podcast when we had our team together, but now I'm just on podcasts. So it's a lot of fun. It's good to kind of get back into the investigating. Because I did like last year. I put my main focus on my astrophotography, and I wanted to make a point to kind of even it out this year and do a little bit of both. And so yeah, so while I'm waiting for the weather to clear up, it's nice to get back into the locations and get some research done. So
It ain't going to be tomorrow. We're expecting an ice storm here tomorrow.
Oh my God.
yeah, yeah, up here too. Yeah.
Yeah, we just had an ice storm a couple days ago, and now we're getting ready to get another one.
Somebody needs to go and soothe whatever gods got pissed off.
Yeah.
'Cause this is some crazy weather. I had 4 inches of snow on my deck in Gulf Shores, so this is
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
I think Aquaman's got a cold. I think that's what
That
it.
could be it.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Maryam, your turn.
Hi, psychic medium. Been doing this the bulk of my life, so we'll say 25 plus years. Alien communication, medical intuitive, basically all of the above, animal communication, all of that. But my, heart is with medical work and alien communication, ET communication. I really love doing that. And, so right now with everything going on in the skies, I've been, documenting every other Thursday, Harlow and I have been going live and just gathering the latest footage, the latest information and channeling information and just getting to the heart of what's actually going on up there. And it's a incredibly unprecedented time. I didn't think I would see this in my lifetime. And so it's very exciting and, a great time to educate and open everyone up to ETs.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to jump right in and ask the first question, which is going to be directed at you, Maryam, since you're trying to make sense of all of this. Have you also been adding the recent plane crashes into that? Because the reason I'm asking, I looked at the one from Philadelphia
Mm.
and saw the ring video from one of the neighbors,
Mhm.
and it looked like that the plane was coming straight in, and then all of a sudden it just went straight down
Mm.
and back right
Mm.
before it crashed,
Mhm.
almost like a gust of wind hit it or something.
Mhm.
Um, but have you guys thrown that
So
into the?
so it's such a good question. So let me kind of walk you through when this started to where we are today. I have been basically, which I always want to clarify this. The work that I do, everyone can and should be doing. Everyone can communicate with ETs. Everyone has psychic abilities. So this isn't, unique to me. I just happen to have been doing this work for a long time. So it's easy to do it. I just want everyone to know that first. But we have been we noticed when Harlow and I first started tracking this that the videos and the stories and the information were coming to us already kind of produced, if you will. So we were being sent specific videos and information, and it would all be in like a certain grouping. So to answer the questions about the planes, that is coming. I mean, I can talk about it now. It's not that I have the information and I'm not sharing it. It's that I too was noticing that and was like, okay, I'm going to wait for this to all come together and then be told this is what we're going to, this is a conversation we're going to have about it. I don't have all of that information yet because for me, interpretation of what I'm told, how I speak about it in respect to people who have passed, but also for me, I absolutely don't want to cross paths with the government in any way because I don't want my work to be I don't want to end up in some crazy ass weird place. But also
Yes.
my work isn't about the government. My work is about the people and our ability to communicate with ETs. So I allow my ET family to monitor and manage what I talk about, how I talk about it. So to answer the question though, there I something is going on, but we don't have all the pieces yet, and I the pieces will be revealed. Like this is not something we are going to have to wait for. But I don't know if I know a lot of people. Most paranormal groups are on Facebook. I encourage you to go to TikTok because TikTok is where the truth of what's happening is. And it's incredible because the truth is coming through people who have never in a million years thought that they would be talking about ETs. They didn't care about ETs, and these beings are showing themselves to the average Joe. But that's what's making this moment so powerful. It's not coming from me. It's not coming from some, from an investigator who's looking for it. This is coming from people who are like, I never thought I'd say the word extraterrestrial, and here I am actually communicating
Yeah.
with one of these things. That's why this is so different and so profound. The information regarding these planes and what's happening will come out. I don't have it yet.
Well, there was another incident today.
Today.
Today, either
Was
yesterday. I think it was today that I saw it.
the Alaska
And
one?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
No,
I don't think I heard about that. I
no,
didn't hear about that.
it's a
I
doozy.
did hear last night that there was a near miss somewhere, but
Yeah.
that's all I know.
Well, and there was even in Houston a plane's engine. Thank God it happened before liftoff, but Houston had a flame out coming out of the
Hmm.
gate.
Wow.
So that was the day. I think it was the day after Philadelphia. But
Wow.
in Alaska was, I mean, and what gets me, you didn't hear about Alaska. I
No.
don't know who has heard about Alaska. I just happened to,
Mm-hmm.
and I was channel surfing, and I was like, "Holy crap!"
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
they're
it's
happening
interesting that you
pretty
bring up
fast.
the one in Alaska because I know back in the 70s, there was a senator or a congressman that was flying out there somewhere and his plane completely disappeared. And they even have the Alaskan
Yes,
Triangle.
that's what happened in Alaska.
Mm.
They lost the plane
Hmm.
in flight.
Yeah, I
Wasn't there?
think I think
Wasn't
they
there like a?
found it today. Sorry, Philip. Go ahead. Did
No, I
they?
was saying, wasn't there like a Chinese, a Chinese uh, um, airplane that like like over Alaska came in contact with some with a craft back in the 80s, I think
There
it was.
was there was a Chinese involvement that I saw, but like I said, I was just catching it as I'm going through, and they were coming across a bay going. They were supposed to be going into Juneau, but they were pointed toward Nome.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I just caught it barely, but
Hmm.
I
Mhm.
was like, they've lost a plane. How are
Right?
we losing planes?
Hmm.
We have a guy in the audience right now. He's saying that they just found the plane.
Thank
Mhm.
gosh. Did they find it intact? Oh, he only saw the headlines.
Yeah.
No survivors is what I think I saw.
Okay.
10 people, 10 people,
Yeah.
a small, was it like a small private plane, I think? And
It was private.
mhm.
Well,
Alaska plane crash. I'm going to see if I can. Yeah, 10 people on the Baron Air flight. Wow.
But,
Um,
it is
this is
strange.
so consistent now.
Mhm.
We've had chatter boom, chatter boom, chatter boom, chatter boom.
mhm,
And given I have a low and suspicious mind sometimes, and with all of the I did a show on the drone activity with Chris Houston, who has a lot of insider knowledge and that kind of thing. And what he had wasn't what I was getting. So it was a
Mhm.
really interesting show for me to do. Because, Marianne, I'd like for your information on that
Mhm.
situation. But what I found interesting was that I was trying to get that drone show done because I just felt like that was going to stop.
Mm.
And then people, it would be out of the headlines and nobody be paying attention to it, right?
Mhm.
And it was a big deal, and people needed to discuss that,
Mhm.
in my opinion. So I grabbed him. I posted, would anyone like a drone show? He said, you've got to have me on. I didn't have any idea why, so I did. Oh my gosh, she was brilliant. But almost immediately, they were gone after that.
Yeah,
They've been there for weeks and
Mhm.
weeks and weeks, and I just felt such pressure to get that on, and
Mhm.
then they were gone, or they weren't being reported
When
anymore.
was this?
A few weeks ago,
Mm.
maybe a month. I'd have to look back at my calendar, which is way over there.
Mhm.
But but you can find it on the Fate Magazine Radio or the Fate Mag Radio Facebook page.
When you
They're
said
there.
that he was sharing information different than what you were getting, what were you getting?
I was getting communication from who I thought was flying were flying those drones.
See,
So
this is what I find, this is what's just so magnificent about all of this is there is so much going on, and there are so many different ET groups, but also so many different man-made human
mhm,
groups.
yeah,
And so all of us are going to be receiving information, and that information will and should be different
hmm
because we, first of all, the the universes are beyond our comprehension. So the amount of
yeah,
life forms that are right are like not one psychic can hold that. So all of us are bringing in all this incredible information and insight, and
right,
all of it's true. I mean, assuming we're talking about people that work from integrity, all of it is
yeah.
accurate, right? And so you have
Well, he
man.
wasn't coming from a psychic viewpoint. He was coming from a governmental standpoint.
Got
And
it.
so, yeah, that was different for me because
Mhm.
that wasn't where mine was coming from.
Right. But
So,
how fascinating, cuz so much is coming out now. So many people are coming forward.
mhm.
There's so much information now just as of like last week, people coming out, and it's it honestly it is beyond what I ever thought the
Yeah.
government was not capable of, but honestly had the balls to deal with.
mm,
I really underestimated, and honestly, I didn't give it I never gave it much thought because the government has no say over what or how and
No
who.
matter how much they'd like to think they do.
Yeah, like it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But when you hear how much they actually know and what they're actually doing, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And this one pilot who I've been following, and I DM'd with a few times because he's just been reporting brilliant insight, getting it kind of firsthand. And he said, this is just my assumption, but what I'm gathering is they don't want humans he didn't word it like this, but what he was saying is what I teach, which is they don't want us to remember who we are. They don't want us to remember that we are capable of telepathy,
Philip
channeling,
does. Philip does.
every everything I do,
Yes.
everything any medium does, everybody does. It's not, and that's like what I've been trying to yell from the rooftops the bulk of my life is like, I'm not doing anything anyone else can't do. You guys just aren't remembering you can't do it. So to hear this average Joe say those words, and again, that's what I find so powerful. These aren't spiritual teachers, paranormal teachers. They're not mediums. These are average Joes putting this
Yes.
together and going, I think he's saying we're capable and the government doesn't want us to know this. Yes, of course, the government doesn't want you to know. Like, but let's move past that and just go, okay, boom, your light went on. Now you remember who you are. Your journey begins.
And
I
Well,
it's
like I said, they want to keep you in the dark, obviously, because they don't want you to, you know, progress as humans. They don't want you to, um, they want to keep you in the dark. That's what it is.
well, a
And
controlled population is easy to manage, right? If we
yeah,
don't know that we're powerful, if we don't know that we don't need them, why would we have them?
Exactly.
and then you have those troublemakers that are trying to make the noise. Oh,
But
here we
you
are.
know, but to be fair too, and this is why I always try to steer the which we're actually going to talk about the government and that somewhat their interaction next week on the show, but I try to steer clear of it simply because we don't want to get caught up in that. Like, it's kind of like, not everyone, but a lot of us have had parents who repressed us, or who had parents who didn't believe in us, or who had parents or a teacher or someone who thought we were crazy. And it's like, okay, bypass that, right?
Right.
Bypass. And it's the same thing. It's like, okay, so you figured out that the government doesn't want you to know shit. Oh, shocking, right? It's kind of like your parents hiding stuff from you as a kid. They didn't want
Yeah.
you to know certain stuff. Okay, well, let's move on from that. Now let's talk about what we're capable of. Holy crap, you know?
hmm
And
This kind of reminds me of the story that I told on your show several months ago. My mom had an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Her and her cousin, um,
Mm-hmm.
something came out and it blew a bunch of wind. They ran into the house. Everything calmed down. They came back out. The thing blew a bunch of wind. They went back. It kept going back and forth, and finally, it just went away.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it
she
is.
Mom had told me that story ever since I was young, and then I was talking to her cousin just 2 years ago, and she was giving me some more about it from her point of view.
Mm.
And she had said that it happened during that time where people did not want you to talk about that, and if you did talk about it, you were in danger of being thrown in the loony bin.
Mm-hmm.
mm
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, it's been like that up until I think all of this started a few months ago. It's, when I had these eyes put on my arm, these ET eyes, oh my God. Even my own husband was like, oh my God. And I'm like, that's why I didn't tell you.
Yeah,
And
some
now
are
I'm
given
like,
this information and don't care, right?
You
right.
guys should hear the stories that she tells about. It's funny.
He's a lot. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I
Yeah.
would bet he says that about you
Oh, a
because you're a lot of
hundred.
fun.
A
Yes.
hundred. No, he says I'm a lot. Yes, I am. Come on, I am a lot. How do I explain to his parents? I told his poor parents that these were cat eyes. They're
That's sweet. Don't
This
freak them out, right?
like that.
90. Like, let's not do this. It's okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to know.
But I do like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's pretty.
So, Kat, what I want to hear more about what you were getting. Like, what kind of information you were getting, if you want to share.
Well, I do because I pay attention when there's weird stuff in the skies, right?
Mhm.
Because it fascinates me for one thing, and I have a history. But I was really surprised when I started looking into the UK because
Mm.
I was at last year's um, Scottish Paranormal and UFO conference, and that was a lot of fun. But I met a gentleman that has a lot of history, and he was friends with one of my favorite UFO people who's passed away. So it was really nice to be able to have that conversation with him. But when I started looking at the stuff over there, all of a lot of our military bases had activity around them. And there was a report of a Chinese sub off of one of the bases in England.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody was like, ah. And I'm getting, don't freak out.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what it's being billed as. And so usually if I get messages like that, they're when I'm asleep. But this wasn't. This was just plain as if I were sitting here like
Oh,
in this
wow.
conversation. Quit freaking out. There's nothing here to worry about.
Mm.
There's, this is not in y'all's control.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I was talking with Chris about the ones, because we were talking about the ones off our coast,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always concerned that, especially at that time, we were in such a transitional period,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody has been so angry that anger can manifest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, I'm not sure what I'm thinking about this. And I didn't get that conversation until I was focusing out of our country.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
that's what I found interesting too, because I'm like, well, what about here? We've got all these situations happening, and people are afraid. What if a drone? Because they were big drones. What if something
Mm-hmm.
goes down?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, well, they're really, really big. Yeah, are those drones? No, those are not drones.
Weren't they
So
size of like cars or something like that?
yeah,
Weren't they
well,
most of them like the size of vehicles?
Mm-hmm.
they were the size of vehicles. They were vehicle. I mean, they were
Yeah,
vehicles.
well, yeah.
And so, if they were not ET, then they were us, and they were pretty well beyond what we admit to if they were
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
So I just found that whole situation bizarre, and
Mm-hmm.
I was frustrated because if we were to come under attack, we didn't have anybody that was going to step up and protect us, that
Mm-hmm.
could step up and protect us.
Mm-hmm.
So that was bad that way too. And it was scary because of that, because I'm like, if somebody is actually coming to do harm to us as a country,
Mm-hmm.
what will happen?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a bad spot. I felt like it was a bad spot to be in. And it made me nervous.
That's fair.
And
It's
then
interesting. Oh,
I
sorry, go
didn't
ahead.
get, like I said, I didn't get any information. I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
for information.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when I started moving over into the UK with my attention, that's when the messaging came.
Mm. Mm.
So maybe they were telling me not to be afraid of the Chinese submarine. I don't know. But either way, I wouldn't like that being around us either. So,
Of
I'm
course.
sure they're there all the time. But we don't ever get told about it.
Yeah, I just
Philip,
find
you
it
were going to
interesting.
say? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just find it interesting in regards to the drones. Our government was saying that we don't feel like we don't know what these things are, but we don't think if they we don't think it's of any harm that would be any harm in us if to us. Yet they don't know what it is. It's like
Yes. What are you basing that on?
how can you have both? If you don't know what it is, how can you say that it doesn't appear to be a threat to national security or whatever or our safety? It just didn't make sense to me at all.
It
But
doesn't make sense. I live in an area where we had Nazi U-boats off of our coast down in Alabama.
Hmm.
They activated, Fort Morgan had people there watching for that, watching for people coming ashore. Because even back then, you can't defend against something that you don't acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be ready for whatever.
My feeling, and the information that I've always gotten, well, that I've been getting, sorry, regarding this immediate situation and what you guys are talking about, has been that obviously they're fully aware,
Yeah.
but it's gotten out of their control. So they're obviously not going to say they're ETs because the bulk of the world can't handle that yet. They're also realizing that they no longer can control the narrative. And so they're doing all that they know to do, which is try to keep everything contained. And so, what I always say is, in their defense, because these are a group, the government is a group of people that are stuck in tradition and only know one way of communicating, right? So they're,
Right.
in many ways, they're like children. They only know how to do one thing. So they're doing the one thing they know. They're trying to control the narrative and bring down the hype. So they're thinking and hoping the bulk of the people will stop panicking.
Mm.
Now, it's gotten out of control because they haven't fulfilled their commitment and their contract with specific ET groups. And they have, the ego thought that this wouldn't happen, and it's happening. And so they don't know how to manage it. They genuinely don't. So this is where we're left. I don't know what the word would be, but you know, you play with fire, you're getting about to get burned. They didn't think they would be burned. And unfortunately, yes, it will impact everyone around us.
Absolutely.
Here's the hope, is that there's enough people like us and like those that are experiencing these orbs and are having these moments of overwhelming love and connection. The more of us that teach this and feel this, this is what that's what it means to raise the vibration on the
Yeah.
planet. And ETs have always been involved in this, always.
Yes.
The question is, who will raise quickest? Because the truth is, if the US is able, or another country is able to gather ET technology, and our tech, if human technology grows faster than human consciousness, we implode like Atlantis did.
Yeah.
And that's inevitable. That
Well,
will
and
happen.
there's so many, but I mean, there's such a long history of this happening on this planet. We
Mhm.
have we have millennia of dead societies
Hmm.
Mhm.
around this globe. And nobody knows where they went. Nobody knows what wiped them out. Nobody knows why their structures are still there, but they're not. And there's no, there's not a representative sampling of the people that were there
Mhm.
to compare with what was there as a, the physical area they lived in,
Mm.
which I think is interesting.
And
So,
eventually, people in the future will be looking back on us, wondering what happened to us and the structures that we've got standing right now.
But if the consciousness is raised, there's no wondering. Like, if we want to find out what happened to those societies, we carry all that information. When you talk about psychic ability that we all carry, that means you know everything, everywhere, always. You hold that information and you're able to connect to it, right? So when we talk
is
about
this like
Atlantis,
Akashic Records type of information?
sure, you could use that.
That,
Yeah, you
that
can
kind of
use that
It's
thing?
kind
word.
of like quantum.
So
It's like quantum mechanics almost. It's like it's
Yeah,
stored, it's already there,
it
but
is there.
it's just yeah. It's like
I
Like
it's
you
know.
like
just have to access it.
yeah.
Yes, I know there's so much terminology, and I don't study the other terminology. I don't study any terminologies, but they all say this. It's like they all say the same thing. It's all
Yeah.
saying the same thing, which is we are born from light, and we carry that information. It's about remembering it. So we can remember what happened because all of us were at one of those locations. One of
Mm.
us was at Atlantis. One of us was building the pyramids. One of us, we were there. We processed so many lifetimes. So it's just a matter of, I've it's just asking, what do you want to know? Don't ask me. And I don't mean it like, don't ask me. I mean it like, you remember, what are you like? I did a series on unexplained cases where I was like, where we were bringing in people. And if you are drawn to a certain city, town, location, that's because you 99% of the time have lived there at another lifetime. That
Mhm.
was you. Why else would you be drawn to that? And you go in and you start finding out what that is. And that's what's happening now. And so all these questions we're asking ourselves, it's like, well, let's answer them. We don't need the government to answer anything.
Mhm.
We're finding that out now. We
Yeah.
can find it out ourselves. What do we want to know? And the group consciousness will just lead us. The group consciousness will change from fear and repression to, and also when the consciousness raises and we carry all that information, most of us will start to experience uh, un that amount of love that comes from spirit that is overwhelming, and it brings everyone down and into a place of community. And now
Mhm.
fear no longer rules, but community rules. And that's where I was saying, like, Kat, Philip, what is the information you're feeling and getting?
Mhm.
Let's do this as a community, because that's where our power lies. And that's how we raise the vibration. And that's how we avoid these darker ET groups that are absolutely, absolutely hanging around just like the light is. And they're like, which way is this world going? We want in. It's
Yeah.
absolutely that sci-fi movie. And here we are, but it's scary as shit.
It
And
is
it's
Well,
scary.
yeah,
Yes.
because it's interesting. You mentioned something about, if you feel like you've been to a town before, Miriam,
Mhm. Mhm.
and there's always been this, I want to say, connection to the Pleiades for
Hmm.
me. I can look up at the sky and literally see the Pleiades system and literally tear up. And it was the first, like, I do astrophotography. It was my first astrophotography, like, project was the Pleiades, and I literally was like, it brought me to tears to see the blue dust clouds that surrounded the stars in that system. But I've always had this draw to that star cluster, and when you said that, it makes me wonder, if possibly, you know, maybe I originated there. Maybe I have that. You know, I don't know.
Well, I
You do.
think that's
I
yeah.
don't
I was
feel that.
going to
I don't
say
feel
you
that.
do.
I don't feel that way about any other. I mean, I'm in all of all the, the deep sky objects I take pictures of it that I see, but the Pleiades is the one that I'm just drawn to, and it just, like, literally makes me tear up when I look at it. It's really, it's different to me.
So
Yeah.
you don't need to wonder.
Yeah,
Hands down, that's who you are.
yeah,
Yes.
And the Palladians come from the future. So that means you're remembering your lifetime from the future, which is why this lifetime can be very challenging and a little unsettling. But if you understand and accept and I want to scold you, but I won't. Stop doubting. Stop saying if. Stop wondering. Buy the book. I'll send you the link to the book. It is not if, it is yes.
yeah.
And you weren't drawn to this photography work by accident.
Oh, I agree
And
with that 100%.
why would you tear up?
Yeah,
Like, so you can actually now make logic of it, but putting the logic aside, take ownership of it. That's when I talk about remember who you are, because if you if you won't remember who you are doing a disservice to who you are.
okay.
And you and this ET family, we don't have time for you to be dragging along going, am I? No time. And when we say no time, I remember teachers would say this to me back in the day, and I'd be like, okay. I just was like, it's never going to be. Now I'm talking like what Kat's saying. When we say no time, we mean, are we talking months? Are we talking weeks? We don't have time. Get on board, get in touch with your family, and find out what you're supposed to be doing.
I'm online right now trying to look to see if there is a picture of the Pleiades with the new James Webb telescope, but I'm not finding one.
There should be one because I'm Orion. Okay, but
Okay.
the Pleiades are also part of me. But I have to ask you: have you? There are nebulae in Orion's belt. Have you gotten pictures of those?
Yeah,
Are they gorgeous pictures?
yeah. I've taken the actual Orion Nebula. Also, I've taken pictures of the Flame Nebula around the belt stars,
Yes.
and also a little bit of Barnard's Loop that goes. Because see, I don't have like filters, so I can't get a lot of the H alpha,
Hmm.
which is what most of these nebulae are visible in. So I have just a standard DSLR camera, which I'm looking to get invest in a dedicated Astro camera, which is just have filters in it. But yes, I've got parts of the Barnard's Loop, the Flame Nebula, the Horsehead Nebula, the Orion Nebula. I got a pretty good picture of the Orion Nebula. Long exposure, 3 minute subs for
Oh my
three
gosh.
3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous. You can see the dust clouds coming off, but the colors, the purples,
Yeah, I
just
was going to
beautiful.
say a
And
lot
then,
of the pictures
yeah,
that you post
yeah,
come out gorgeous.
yeah,
Yeah.
Can
So
we
I'm
see
going to be finding those. You're going to see me all over your media.
yeah.
So
The belt stars of Orion are just. It's just 3 stars, but they're beautiful,
they are
you
beautiful.
know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Can we
I
see
love.
the picture that you got of the Palladians, the one that you said made you tear up, and any other ones? Like, can we see it now?
I don't know if I can.
You can
Let me
share
try.
your screen on here, or if that won't work for you, you can send them to me, and I'll.
Yeah, I'll practice them too. I do have some of my photos of like the Orion Nebula, the North American Nebula. I've got pictures of that. I have the Pleiades, the one I did. It was that was my first project, so it's kind of not the greatest. It's not the
That
greatest,
was your passion project.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. That was like that's the first one I said I had to do it first. I'm much better now than I used to be. I've had a lot of practice under my belt,
Yeah.
so I want to shoot it at a longer focal length, so I get up closer, and I can really see the better. I'm waiting to do it, but it's been so cloudy lately. I haven't been able to get out, but I do have some really good ones of the North American Nebula that I just finished up back in November or back in early November. I had about 9.5 hours worth of
Oh wow.
integration time. Yeah, so you can see a lot of the you can definitely see the North American Nebula and some of the Pelican Nebula as well, but because I don't have a Astro modified camera, a lot of the H alpha from the nebula are not as vibrant as what it could be, but you can definitely see why they call it the North American Nebula. It looks like the North American continent. It's just beautiful, and then the stars around it, and
Yeah,
it's
I'm
very
looking
cool.
at pictures now. I can see Mexico in it.
Yeah,
When you say the H alpha, what is that exactly?
Mhm.
it's hydrogen alpha. It's
Okay.
it's what it's what makes up the nebula. Yeah, it's the hydrogen alpha. Then there's oxygen in some of them, and then phosphorus. There's different filters for uh, there's different filters for different objects. What might be good for Orion might not be the greatest for the Andromeda galaxies.
Mm.
You know, and so you just got to pick and choose. Look at other people's projects and see what they've used, and then try to like make your own composition up. Which that's what I did with Orion. Orion was just no filter at all, and the colors just were so vibrant. And I was just blown away when I saw, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm capturing this with my camera. Thousands of people did it, but it's just knowing that it's your own.
Sure.
You know,
Exactly.
it's
I mean,
beautiful.
there's just something because that's what speaks to your soul,
Yeah,
right? When
Mhm.
yeah,
you're passionate. I'm a photographer.
it's
So,
awesome.
but I'm a beach and wildlife photographer. And when it's something that is speaking to your soul in that
Mhm.
moment,
Mm.
it's just the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see those because, you know,
Um,
I'm a
I might
I,
get
I'm a hammock layer.
okay.
I'm outside. I'm a dog walker, and so I'll just lay out there and enjoy, right? But I was a friend of mine, Mark D'Antonio, is an astronomer, and so I was laying out there, and I sent a text message, and I was like, "Is there a nebula on Orion's belt?" And he was like, "There is more than one." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Well, should I be able to see? Is it red? Should I be able to see it?" And he was like, "I would be surprised." And I'm like, "Well, it's right in this position, right?"
Yeah.
And so I was seeing it with a naked
Wow.
eye. And I was just, because I
Wow.
have a Dobson telescope, right?
Nice.
But
Yeah.
it was so cool just to be laying in a hammock with a dog and
That's
see that.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
maybe I can send. Maybe I can send. Let me try to get on my phone. I can probably send it to you, Jeremy, and
Yeah,
you said you
That would
can
be
share it.
awesome.
Mhm.
I would
Let me look
really
this
like
up.
you
that.
can either send it to me, or if it's on your computer, you can do a screen share.
I'll go ahead and send it to you real quick. I'll send a couple of them. I'll send Orion the nebula for you,
Thank
Kat, and
you.
I'll also show my North American nebula as well. Um,
What's really weird about some of these things up in the sky is, at least for me, I cannot see them when I'm looking directly at them. I have to look off somewhere else, and that's when it pops out for me.
Hmm.
Do you three have that same experience?
I do.
Mm.
Not all the time, because I was actually in my backyard one afternoon, again, in the hammock. But it was, and I was on the phone with my daughter, and this really weird green, gray, yellow cloud, it was a strange color, just came flying really low. And it was just like coming across backyards and stuff. And I've got a gazebo, and it was as low as my gazebo.
hmm,
Wow.
And it's just, and then it stopped. And I was just like, and I'm on the phone with her, and I'm like, do not hang up. Just do not hang up because I'm seeing something really weird. And like the proverbial pie tin, right? The inverted pie tin, the lip of it just pulled out. And I couldn't see any portholes, darn it, because it was solid.
Mm.
And I'm like, you're still there, right? Don't hang up. So, because I have, do all these conferences, and I talk to all these experiencers and scientists from all the walks and all the ideas. And I'm like, I've talked to people who have lost time.
Mm.
And I'm just really determined that I'm not going to, right? So this thing comes out of the cloud enough for me to see where there would be windows if there were any. And I'm tripping out, right?
Mm.
So it just, and I'm telling her what I'm seeing, and it just kind of, the cloud catches back up with it, and it just moves off. And
Wow.
then, it dissipated. It started to go over our mountain and dissipated.
When was
And
this?
this has been, let's see, she was living, I think she was in Colorado at the time. So that's been probably 4 years,
Mhm.
maybe a little more. No, it hadn't been any more than that. But, because it was rare for me to get to talk to her during the day.
Mm.
So, but it was one of the strangest things I've ever had happen.
It
And
sounds like you're a seer. It sounds like you're able to see things the average person may not witness or
yeah,
see, even though it's manifested physically.
yeah,
So
yeah.
interesting.
And that I live in a neighborhood. And granted, it was like mid afternoon. So most people would be at work, even if they were working medical personnel working a shift, they probably would have been coming or going.
Mhm.
But it was probably the weirdest thing, not spirit related, that
Right.
I've ever had happen.
You didn't feel anything from it? You were just too, like,
Just
in
I was
mesmerized.
just well, I didn't understand why they wouldn't let me see them,
Ah.
because I felt like there should have been portholes there,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it was because basically I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not going anywhere. Don't do it, you know. And so, but I was so disappointed to not be able to see them.
But
because
maybe you didn't see them because you were determined to not lose time.
probably
And
so, because they knew I wasn't willing to go.
yeah, and
Yeah,
so I think that I think it's okay to, depending on what feels right for you, uh,
absolutely.
it's okay to, if you want to see them, then it's okay to, I mean, what's the problem with losing time?
Well, because I was on the phone with my daughter who would have tripped out.
Well, there's that.
I
I mean,
mean, and
I
she was
mean,
only like 19 or
Yeah,
20 at the
that's a
time.
911 call waiting to
right,
happen.
right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, like, moving forward, so you can have the experience you want to have. You
Well,
know,
sure. I mean, I have. So it's not,
you've been able to have it.
yeah. So, I mean, my husband even, whoops, wrong side. I'm so bad at this, y'all. But my husband even provides entertainment for my office. So I had a blue guy who is Al, and lost he lost his ear. So this is Al too,
He's really
and
cute.
Al Leon, yes. But it's just it just happens, and I get we have a lot of times during the Pleiades meteor showers, craft come and they park in Orion's belt
Hmm.
and on the second star. And so I'm always just like, and I've tried to report it twice to MUFON using their system. Neither time was I able to get that report turned in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it glitched every time, both times. And, you know, I have different experiences. And I actually even mentioned that when I was at a conference to somebody who's actually a rocket scientist. And I was like, why does this not work? Because he's involved with MUFON. And he was like, well, I don't know. It's a good system. I said, well, not when I'm trying to report something live that's
Hmm.
happening then. So somebody else could go look out their window and see it, maybe.
Got it. Yeah.
But yeah, but it's a consistent thing I've found.
Hmm.
So, and it happens during other meteor showers too, but definitely every time during the Palladian.
That you're meaning you're not able to record it or document
I don't have.
when you're on.
I mean, I have a Nikon, but my lenses, while they're good, aren't that good.
Hmm.
I do beach and wildlife photography. I don't do astral. So, yeah, and it's night.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I haven't tried it with my Dobson
Yeah,
because I'm not that good with it yet.
Mm.
I got
I
Phil's
saw a picture.
ready to come up. So here is, let's see here. That's not. I guess that's. There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the North American Nebula right there. You can see, obviously the continent, Central
Yeah,
America, Florida, and up above is the Pelican Nebula. At the top of the blue star is
it looks
that.
like a wolf.
Yeah.
It's cool, but I
That
do
Yeah.
is.
see what you're talking about.
A lot of these diffraction spikes on the stars are just a program. That's not the act. I mean, they're real stars, but they're not. I just add the diffraction spikes as kind of like a little, like a
It's
here we
beautiful.
go. That's better.
Wow,
yeah. If I
Wow.
had
look at that. Is so bizarre. I
if I
love
had
that.
if I had a filter, or I was using an Astro modified camera, a lot of that nebula would be more visible in the red spectrum as you see the
It's
around the outside of it. It would be more red, which is the natural colors. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's brilliant as it is. Good
So
Mhm.
catch.
are those stars that color?
No, no. I mean, the I kind of added the spikes and the colors kind of keep it. It's a random. The colors come in kind of random. Now the big one at the top, is that's a pretty natural. The one to the right is
Mhm.
natural. That's more of a natural color.
Yeah,
The blue ones, they're not necessarily blue. They might have a blue tint to them.
Oh.
So yeah, they may be, but they kind of just the program I use is kind of just like it just kind of adds those diffraction spikes. It has to give it a little bit of a little flair to the picture.
I see.
It just made me think that they were blue giants.
Yeah.
So
It's
Yeah,
just such a gorgeous picture.
It is. And, the definition is so good.
It
yeah,
is.
wait till you see the other ones.
it's about 9 hours of integration time. So, and I was running about 3.5 minute sub exposures. So I was drawn with a would have been an f2 lens, 135 millimeter f2 lens. That's a
Okay.
standing lens, so it's a really fast lens. So it gets a lot of light in really quick.
It's brilliant.
Yeah,
Well
Mhm.
done, man. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
Hey, let me
yeah,
go.
I love the cosmos. It's
you're
yeah.
good at it.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
And,
Wait
you
till
know, that's
she sees the Orion. She's gonna flip out. Cat will. She'll like.
probably so.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll be right back. I
Okay.
need to. Dog wants out. One sec.
So there's Orion.
yeah, that's Orion.
God.
And Tom, who is in the audience, had
Hey,
actually
Tom
sent me
McNicholas.
another a picture himself that he found off a website. But this one here is yours.
Yeah, that's Orion.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, like I said, that was done with an f4 300 millimeter lens. The stars are a little bloated, probably because of I don't know. It could have been just the camera itself. I mean, the lens I have is a really good Canon lens.
Right.
That was early on. When I think that was my second project. So um, I've learned a lot since then. My processing got a lot because I use a lot of Photoshop. I use
I think
Adobe.
this is really good as it is. I mean,
Yeah, I
don't be
want to shoot
acting
them
like
again.
that's not excellent.
Yeah, I've seen some really good ones, but also there's those are $7,000-8,000 telescopes and
Yeah. But
$2,000-3,000
look
mounts. And,
That's
look at
probably
the
the one
colors,
that took this next picture
It's
that I'm
incredible.
right?
um, let's see.
That was gorgeous. Which one was that?
Orion,
Orion.
Wow.
right?
Okay, this here is the one that Tom sent me.
Yeah,
Um,
And what's this one?
that's Orion as well.
Ryan.
Yes.
Looks like he probably have a filter. There's some filters to kind of bring out some of the H alpha as well. I did a lot of saturation in that. When I did processing of the Orion, I
Yeah.
probably ran a little bit the saturation up a little too high, and which I've Photoshop can be a bear to learn. So
It
there's a
is.
lot there's a lot to it. So and I've
This
got a
here is
lot
the
better
belt,
since then.
right?
No, no, the belt would be somewhere
In the nebula.
over in this area,
Yeah.
to the top right a little bit, over a little bit off the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't see the belt stars from there.
Okay.
I, mhm.
Oh,
I do
okay.
I do have a picture of the belt stars though too that I took. I'll send it to you too, Jeremy.
Yes.
All right. So
Boy,
now,
I'm
You,
getting
you can
close to
see
my screen, so yeah.
you can see
Up close
you can
and
see the flame
personal. But I
you can
love
see the
this
flame
stuff.
nebula. You can see the flame nebula in the other one as well, and
Yes.
you can see some of the Barnard's loop, and the horse head's a little bit off to the the horse head would be not as visible because it was like a 30-second exposure, or it's like a minute and a half exposure. But that's this one you're seeing now is that's the Bode's galaxy, which is about 13 million light years away,
Wow.
Wow.
and then the Cigar galaxy to the left, and there's two more galaxies in the top right and the bottom center. So there's four galaxies in this one picture.
Wow.
The one,
That's
you,
so special.
yeah, that one's the Bode's galaxy. That's in the constellation. I want to say
let's see. You labeled
Cassiopea, I think.
this one. Okay. Yeah. Bodes in Cigar Galaxy. I didn't even notice this other one here you sent me. So I need to get that one prepared.
That was the belt stars. I think the last one I sent was the belt stars of Orion
Oh. Okay.
with the flame nebula, a little picture, a little bit of the flame nebula, and it's a single exposure, so
Oh.
it actually looks really good for a single exposure though.
Yeah. I'll get that one prepared as well.
But and it just the universe is such a massive place. There's
It is.
we're proof that life. I mean, I mean, it's no doubt about life exists out in the universe. I mean, I have no doubt about that.
No,
Um,
me either.
and it's yeah, it's just to see these, it just
Looking at this picture right here with this galaxy, seeing how bright this light is right here, I
yeah,
can't
it's important.
imagine how that's got to be when you're there.
But you got to think that's like the center of the core. There's probably
Yeah,
trillions and trillions of suns in there, so
Yeah.
yeah.
it's saturated. There's a more saturated area where the stars are.
And to think that anybody has the idea that with the billions and trillions and bazillion galaxies that there are, that we are the only life forms around.
That's that's one galaxy. That's just one
Yeah.
galaxy, and there's trillions upon trillions of stars there, and who knows how many are able to sustain life. Which obviously,
Yeah.
it's all about we can adapt. There's adapting species out there that can adapt to their own. Yeah, there's the belt stars
Oh,
over
that's
on.
nice.
yeah.
And there's the nebula.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's
you can
so
see
cool.
the flame nebula at the top. A little bit of
Yeah.
Barnard's Loop is on the outside, yeah, and then the horse head.
So the
Yeah,
fact that you were able to zoom in just this little bitty here and still have the um, nice definition that you had on that earlier, that's
yeah.
astounding.
It
That's a
is.
single exposure too. That's just a single exposure. I got bored. I was having there was some bad weather coming in, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take pictures of the belt stars because I love those. I love the stars. So, so
So you got bored
maybe
and
it's
just
that.
happened to shoot that one off then.
I just really quick slung my scope over and took a
I
quick picture
love
and
that.
packed my stuff
I
up.
love that.
Yeah,
Those are
but
incredible.
Right?
you
You're
know,
really
and,
good.
and that's the thing. I mean, it's just I have this fascination with the universe. I mean, most people do. Most people. There's not a time where I go outside and not look up and just wondering how many people are actually doing the same thing, or how many species are looking down or looking up and going, I wonder what's out there.
I
They're
know,
doing the
right?
same thing we are.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
looking
absolutely.
up and
I
Uh,
always ponder that too. And because when I've traveled, people are always curious about what we do here, right?
Mm,
yeah,
And so it's really fun to contemplate what other people are doing wherever they are.
mm,
You know, do they wonder about us? Do they even wonder if, do they even know that they're not the center of the universe? I mean, they're the center
mm.
of theirs, their
Right.
yeah,
galaxy usually, but it's just kind of like we don't even know what's on the planets in our solar system.
Mm,
So it's just it's so fun to contemplate, right? We
yeah,
think we know what's going on them, but now, even this month, we've gotten information about Mars being so much more like Earth than anybody ever even
mm,
contemplated.
yeah,
mhm,
So obviously, it was uh, a place that could have sustained a population, a civilization,
mm.
yeah,
and probably like we're trying to do, the civilization got too full of themselves and didn't mind their manners with their planet. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
you know, or a great big pulse blew and just fried them, which hopefully would have happened very quickly. But, there's so many things that can take you out. I think that we should always try to, if we can communicate with somebody somewhere else,
Mhm.
everybody's always afraid we're going to get eaten. Sci-fi movies. Let's start out with the Palladians and the Syrians, and then we'll move from there.
Totally,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
if you watch Independence Day too much, that's going to mess with your mind.
Mm.
I love Independence Day. I watch that every time I find it on, and my husband even will know it's coming on and come find me.
I'm
So
That's funny.
really hoping that they will make that third movie so they can complete the trilogy.
I hope so.
I have a question for Maryam.
Mhm.
Okay, you mentioned that you were in contact with ET. Um, is there a particular a race, or are you in contact with multiple races, or from different? Um, which ones are you? what are ones that you are like? I'm drawn to the Pleiades.
Mhm.
Which ones are you drawn to? What pulls you in? Which
So
species or
my
which area?
so my experience is a little different than I think a lot of other mediums or ET communicators, because I have I have a family that I work with, but I've never like focused or was concerned with names and where they're from.
Yeah.
One of the reasons for me is I don't want to bastardize the
Okay.
psychic connection. And so I know that I had my, which I won't share it because it's a long story, but when I was first introduced to the ET communications 20 something years ago, the Palladians were mentioned. I think they are the biggest, they tend to reach out the most to introduce us into this world. And, but I wasn't necessarily like, I didn't start researching them or anything like that. I just, because when I was first introduced to all of this, it was very scary for me.
I bet.
And then one day, though, something really crazy happened. This guy at my job, he was just passing through and he kept trying to connect with me. And I'm like, ugh, God, is he hitting on me? Like, what is he doing? And then one day I just come to walk into my office, and on the desk is the book. What is it called? About the cat, maybe you know, the Palladians. It's like probably one of their most popular books. But I forget the name, but I'm gonna send it to you, Philip, well, once
Okay.
we're done here. And I knew that book, it's like someone doesn't give you that book unless they know that you are I'm not an ET right now, but that I come from there. I
Mhm.
know, Freudian slip there. And so when I saw the book, I was much younger, still scared by it. My heart just dropped, and I was like, "Who the fuck put this here? What is? How does this person know? I don't know this person from Adam. How does he know that but right?" So but I never really like obsessed over like that's who my family is. I
Yeah.
refer to them as my family. That's who it is. I
Yeah.
just allowed it because, and I'm not saying this is what everyone should do. It was just for me. At a young age, I was encouraged to not fill my brain with too much intellect so that I could channel much clearer. And I
Mhm.
do encourage people to take that route within reason. I'm not saying don't read and don't watch television. I do all that, but within reason. And for you, Philip, for sure, there's always the beginning phases of you need to research. Like, I need to figure, like, what is this? Who is
That's
this? Right. And
yeah.
you'll read and it won't really align, and then you'll do something else and it might align. And so that's why I don't hone in on names, because remember, these books and these names of these ET families are just channeled from humans. So
Yeah.
who knows, and that includes me, how accurate we're getting these names,
Exactly.
right? And so this might be a family that you're genuinely aligned with, but the name's not resonating. And so all of a sudden now there's this glitch. And so that's why I say, just like, whew, just what are you being drawn to? What is being shown to you? What is being handed to you, right? And just keep moving towards that until the all of the communication comes from here. Kat has it during, it communicates at night in her dreams is one way, right? For
Yeah.
you, you'll find how that communication, it's for you, Philip, to
Mine's
communicate
under the
with
stars. Mine's when I'm under the stars at night and I'm sitting there just looking at them. Wow,
E- exactly. And then you'll start to receive information.
Yeah.
And the information is subtle. It's not loud. It can be loud. It can if we're in a state of
it's very
emergency,
subtle.
like right now.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's this subtle, it just takes over you. And your brain isn't making sense of it. It's just this knowing. And you're like, huh? And so yeah, that didn't I turned the question onto you, but
Oh,
because today is about you, Philip. Today is about you
It is all
joining
you.
Joining
No,
the family. Welcome to the family. Our first barbecue is next week. You are
yeah.
invited. You will.
Now, I do have a. It's like you mentioned, don't call them by name. Don't focus on the name. It makes you wonder. We on Earth we give names to these certain, stars and certain, certain stars, certain
We name
galaxies.
everything.
We name everything, but they might be. I mean, what are they really called? What is their own? What is the what name did their own give that galaxy? We gave ours the Milky Way galaxy. That's the name that we chose. This might be, to the people in the Bodes galaxy or Andromeda, we might be a completely different. We might not be called the Milky Way galaxy. We might be something
Mhm,
totally different.
You
So
have
that's
to
like you said. That's something we need to do is not just focus on the name because it might
mhm,
not be, what we're looking for. It might be
mhm.
something completely different.
Well, it would
And
be
that.
like a species. I mean, I'm sorry, Maryam.
No, you go, Kat. You go.
Well, I was just going to say that, if you're trying to focus on a name, all that's trying to humanize them,
Yes.
Yeah,
and they're not human.
I agree.
And
100%.
you know,
Um,
when I was trying to find out my spirit guide's name, for example,
Mhm,
I I I asked, I always just said, if you could just like right as I'm waking up, be in my ear so that I'll
mhm,
retain that.
mhm,
And three different times because I couldn't, it didn't make sense.
mm,
And when I tried to look up the name to find out the background, I couldn't find it anywhere. And it was Malgonquin. And so I'm thinking Algonquins, like the Native American tribe in
mm.
Northern America, far North America. And, you know, come to find out, no, it was that word. So I'm
Oh.
just like, well, I'm sorry I was so dense. I was trying to understand it and where you were from. Well, come to find out, my dad's best friend, who they've both passed away now, but he was from Brussels. And in his town in Brussels is a park called Malgonquin.
Interesting
So there is a connection.
connection.
And I was just like, well, there you
That's
go.
amazing.
I know, right? In a park. And
That's
that
amazing.
information came to me through the most roundabout channel of just somebody. I just mentioned that word one day and said, oh, well, that's a park in Brussels. Yeah.
Wow.
the thing that I wonder about is not necessarily trying to focus on name, but the language barrier, because we have had hundreds of languages here on this planet alone. More than half of them are dead languages. So, if how would you be able to understand a language that they're speaking?
Because they're smart enough to be able to communicate with
Yeah.
us. We don't have, they adjust to us. Or in my
You're
experience.
no, Kat's 100% right. Also, though, when we are talking about telepathy,
Yeah.
there is no language.
No.
Don't ask me to explain that,
It's
but
more a visualization, right?
it can be, right? Some
Yeah.
like Kat, you see, Philip, I don't we'll find out if you feel, if you hear, if you whatever you do, right? For me, I always was someone that could hear. Jeremy, you might see, feel, hear all the above. As we grow older, we take all those senses on. But ultimately, like all through 30 years of channeling, how do you think I've channeled people from different countries?
Yeah.
Because it's not about language.
No.
It's about telepathy. It's about psychic communication. There's no language there. It's a knowing. And I
No
can't
barrier.
explain
Yep.
it other
Yeah.
than you all get it. You get it. Now, Jeremy, it's just like an intuitive sense. You hear a voice, right? We think that voice is speaking in English, but that voice is communicating something telepathically. That's all. And we are choosing to change that language to something we understand. But there is no, I don't want to, I want to say there's no language, but you know what I mean. It's has nothing to
Well,
do with.
basically, we're still part of Babel, but we, if we're doing it with our minds are so powerful
Mhm.
that I think a
There's a
lot of
barrier.
what is still in there in our core is the ability to comprehend.
Mhm.
And, if you have a savant, then they speak what, 7, 8, 25 languages with no effort.
Mhm.
but that's because that part of them is activated.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same thing with the people that can paint things that they've never seen.
Mhm.
And to me, that's really cool.
Mhm.
But because that's channeling from a whole different part of you, I think. So,
Absolutely.
anyway,
Completely agree because the savants, and then you got those with autism.
mhm.
Mhm.
Because I remember
We're
seeing,
often savants.
yeah, because I remember seeing a story where one autistic person, he's an artist, and he did a one flyover of New York City, and then from memory he penciled every building
Wow.
onto this large canvas. Amazing to be able to retain that kind of detail in such a short amount of time like that.
And maybe
Right.
it's already there. Maybe it's already locked in already. They say we have through quantum, mechanics and stuff that everything's there. It's
Mhm.
all there. It's all
It
locked in,
is. But that's a
and
whole different and
that's a
really
whole
fun
different.
topic.
Yeah, because I've been actually
And
digging into that with some friends of mine. That talking about the quantum. Well, I'm trying to think of the. I'm trying to think of the what we were talking about. It was I was reading a book recently. Or I was listening to a book, an audio book. Was talking about the about quantum mechanics. I had to, but anyway, yeah, it was a very interesting topic, and how everything is already locked in there. And it was a study done where they were trying to figure out if memory was they were like taking pieces of their frontal lobe off, and it was they were still able to, well, pretty much in a nutshell, that everything is stored already. It's not. It's in. I think I got to think of yeah, I got to think of the name of the book, but
yes,
I'll have
you
to get
do
back with you
because
later
I'm
Is
on
wanting
that one.
to
that
But
read it.
a Bob Lazar T-shirt I see you wearing?
oh yeah, it's my Bob Lazar T-shirt. Yeah, I'm fascinated. I'm very fascinated with this story. Yeah,
I am
very
too.
fascinated. Yeah,
I think it's very true. I think a lot of people
I
have done
believe
an
it.
awful lot of work to discredit him, and
Yeah,
they just made themselves look like goofballs.
Yeah,
I
Dreamland. It's a great story.
read his
Dreamland is a
story
great book.
and Lear's story.
I actually got to go for my very first time last summer. So to Area 51 and went down and had lunch at Dreamland and got to go out to the lake bed and stuff and the whole tourist thing.
Tattoos.
How
That's awesome.
close was
What
that?
fasc- I think what fascinates me about the whole Bob Lazar is the Bob Lazar story is when he actually worked when he went supposed to went out to F5, and he worked on those back engineered craft. He went up in the craft, and down into the bottom part, and he had those the pretty much the ship created its own gravity field. The road the Earth's gravity had no bearing on the ship's
Mhm.
gravity, so they could create their own field and just ride the wave pretty much forever.
Yeah.
Mm.
And how those little swinging arms would like had its own function and stuff. And he said that um, uh, he knew about well, element 115 before was part of the propulsion of that craft. And he had it. And when they worked on that, it was 100% efficient. Getting off, they were standing next to that that power source from that craft, and it produced 100%. He said it was cold to the touch, but yet it produced 100% energy. He said
Wow.
there's nothing on Earth that produces 100% efficient energy, and that's where he was back engineering. His job was to back engineer the propulsion part of the craft, and they said it was from Zeta Reticuli. That's what his what he heard in
Yeah.
his the briefing that the craft was from Zeta Reticuli. That's what
I
he
find it
said.
interesting with the technology that that they're working on in Area 51 because we went through centuries of absolutely nothing, and then they kind of start harnessing a little bit of electricity back in the late 1700s, and then there's just a very slow build up And after the crash in Roswell,
Yes.
with the first, I don't know, maybe 15 years, it's kind of slow and steady, and then all of a sudden it's like an explosion.
Mm.
It's
Well,
almost
and
like they finally nailed it from that aircraft in their.
well, they had another aircraft before they had the Roswell one.
I
And
remember hearing something about
Trinity.
it.
In fact, Jacques Vallée wrote with Paola. Um, I always say her name wrong. She's probably going to beat me one day. But it's really interesting because what I found fascinating is the name of the families that were involved with that craft, because there were two kids riding horses. They weren't supposed to be out, but that's life. And a, a craft came and it clipped a like a comm tower that had whatever little communication lines that they had back then going to the base. And so these kids are like, oh my gosh. And so they didn't go down there because they weren't supposed to be there.
Hmm.
And one of the occupants was out running around like, ah, and two of them were dead, and that one was injured. But it was just like they just basically kept the one that was alive. And
What did they look like? Do we know?
um, I don't, I think just the standard grays,
Mm.
like Al. So, who or green.
Is it
But
Viola Leo Pizzi Harry Harris?
yes, Paola Harris.
Okay.
But it's really interesting because the family name of one of those children was the last name of somebody that reached out to me on Facebook a few years ago.
No kidding.
And I didn't know who he was. And I couldn't find any information on him. He was, he wanted to talk to me. And finally, I just said, can you tell me about your history?
Uh-huh.
Because I can't find out anything about you. And he was always in pictures with my friend Stanton Friedman and Kathy Martin. And so I couldn't figure out why he had reached out to me, why he was always looking like a fan, right?
Mm.
Not somebody that was part of the conferences. And so I was just like, can you just tell me about you? And I think I offended him, and I wasn't trying to. I just wanted more information.
Mm-hmm.
And because I don't like being blindsided
Sure.
mid interview, right? And so when I was reading this book, this has been 5, 6 or more years ago that this man reached out to me. And I saw his last name in that book. That was his grandfather. That was one of those children that found that
Wow.
craft. And I just felt like but he could have just talked to me,
Sure, sure, sure.
because I would have loved to have that conversation.
Of course.
And I couldn't because I didn't want to, not knowing, I didn't want to I wouldn't have brought a story like that to the air without having information.
Sure.
So, but it was just like, I'm going to find him because I go to UFO conferences, and I'm going to find him, and I'm going to apologize and say, why didn't you just tell me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, but and Jeremy, that's a great book. That's a really good book. In fact,
What's it called?
Trinity
Trinity. Okay.
by Jacques Vallée and Paola Harris. But it's really, so I did not know that there had been a crash prior to Roswell that was also taken by our military,
Hmm.
because they came and got that craft too.
Mm.
The
And
way that I understand it is around Roswell, there were actually 5 crashes over a period of months. And the one that we know was the last of those crashes.
okay, well,
That's
I
how,
didn't know about the other three,
yeah,
but
that's how I understand it.
Well, the only reason they found that one was because it knocked down their telegraph tower,
Mm.
their communications
Mm.
tower, and basically it was just a line strung on a telephone pole. And when they couldn't communicate, they went trying to trace the line to find the problem, and they found a lot more than the line down.
Oh,
So
now,
Wow.
I
now
think,
let
I think
me
most,
let me ask.
I think most of the craft that they took out of Area 51s now, they took most of the, I think, bodies and stuff out to Wright Patterson, didn't they?
I
In
absolutely
in
agree with
Dayton,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Now
And
let me ask you a question. The Trinity UFO, I was looking it up because I'd never heard of it before. It was not long after they did the Trinity test in a big big bomb that they had. Um, did they do a hydrogen bomb testing around Roswell?
I don't know that for a fact. I know that most of the hydrogen testing was in the desert outside of Vegas. They actually,
That,
because Stanton
that's
Friedman
what I thought.
was the nuclear physicist that was part of, well, one of the nuclear physicists that was part of all that. And so, I mean, because, you know, it was very close to Vegas because even if you go out there now, the Gold Nugget and some of the other hotels still have the signs of the nuclear explosions because people would go and go to their rooftops to watch the detonations.
Wow.
So that
Because
was a big draw there.
the reason I'm asking is, could there have been um, something left over from the explosion, like how in Chernobyl, when they had that meltdown, you still can't go there.
Mm.
If anything from the testing site could have done something to the UFO's um, inner workings and cause it to crash.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I think probably more likely they weren't used to our gravity
Mhm.
and maybe they were not very well versed. You know, maybe they were kind of new at what they were doing too.
And
Mhm.
they
Because
claimed that they claimed on these craft were at slow speeds they were fast traveling craft, most of the,
mhm,
and then when they traveled at slower speeds, they were very unstable.
mhm.
And
Mm.
yeah, I think when they're coming into our atmosphere, they probably slow down, and if it's an atmosphere that they're not used to, it makes it even more unstable. So it
Mhm.
makes you wonder, because like I'm gonna go back to the Bob Lazar story. He said when he watched, the test flights of the sport model craft,
Yeah.
when it was moving, it was really unstable. It rocked back and forth, and just it wasn't a stable craft at slow speeds. So it makes you wonder,
Well, it
is
does. And plus, these, I mean, this one was at night.
Mhm.
So I'm sure it didn't see that telephone pole, telegraph
right?
pole.
Yeah,
And it was just maybe joyriding and there it went,
So
but
if we had these UFO crashes all happening in the 40s, and they're disputed, but I believe it. The documented UFO visitations
mhm.
thousands of years ago, how many of them would have crashed then?
There's no telling because there's no way that we would have been able to ascertain where they went down or if they went down because they would be, if they were in the desert, they'd be buried by now.
yeah.
Mhm.
And, that we're talking millennia, really, that
I,
there have
I,
been
I like to think
Wasn't there a craft? Wasn't
buried
there
in the
a craft
jungle.
found out in a cave in like Afghanistan, like a Vimana that was discovered, like I think it was in Afghanistan or Iraq. Didn't they find like
it
a
was,
craft
wasn't it Afghanistan?
I think it was Afghanistan. They found a Vimana out there in a cave. It was
Yeah.
like ancient, like very old. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I was just so fascinated by. When I was doing some research for this, I found some stuff because I got to hear Eric Van Doniken talk like 4 times one summer. It was really
Very
cool.
cool. Very
Oh,
cool.
But
that'd been
because
awesome.
he's amazing. But yeah, all the stuff that he flew over the Nazca lines when they were complete, right? And he was like 17. He was working as a waiter. He'd get up the money to go and explore, and he'd go and do his trip and then come back and work some more and then go someplace else. He was really amazing. But he had a he had a priest at his school who turned him on to the Book of Enoch,
Mhm.
and they had a copy in their church, and that's where he got his ideas and decided that he wanted to go find stuff. But it was so fun because I'm sitting there listening to him, and I'm like, he's been in the Queen's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. They
Mm.
ran like a little car through it because they couldn't go in.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah.
But there's all kinds of stuff that he's done, and he doesn't question anything because he's gone and seen for himself. And I think that if I could be 17 and doing that all over again, heck yeah. I never knew that was a possibility when I was 17. But
Most people aren't
it,
interested in this.
His book Chariots of the Gods really
Awesome though.
changed everything in terms of critical
yeah,
thinking about this kind of thing.
Mm.
yeah. And if you'll look, that that title has a question mark at the end of it.
It does.
Mm.
And he was attacked viciously for that book because we're going against God. We're going against the Bible. This isn't biblical. You're you know the Antichrist basically. And he told this one man that was just so busy attacking him. He was like, "Have you actually looked at the book?" And the man's like, "Well, what, what?" And Eric said, "There's a question mark at the end of my title. I'm
Mm.
asking, are these the chariots of the gods? Is it a
Mm.
possibility that these are the chariots of the gods?" Because Ezekiel left in a flaming chariot.
Yeah.
There's so many UFOs in the Bible,
Mm.
and I think there's four. And you cannot be so close-minded that you can't say, okay, well, if this is the word of God, why are there UFOs in it?
Mm.
If there aren't UFOs,
Mm.
and I mean, I I thought those were great questions, right? I really did.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, interesting man. If you
There
ever
are
see
some
him go,
copies of the book that does not have the question mark on it.
well, they're supposed to all have the question mark on it.
Yeah, they are. Unfortunately, they
Then
don't.
that would be on the publisher.
Yes. I actually read that book. It was fascinating,
Mhm.
and one of the chapter headlined is God an alien?
Yeah. Well, he is. He's not of the earth.
Right.
Mhm.
I would say he would be the alien if you're going to put it in that context
Mhm.
because we don't understand him. We can't. We're not capable of understanding
Well,
a lot of that.
it made me wonder, especially after reading that book, with the concept of if God was an alien, if maybe he was like the supreme leader of his race, and
Well, I think
Noah's
he's who
Ark.
made the different races.
Right.
I think that he got lonely and wanted to, you know, create things. And I think that probably if there are a lot of different species out there, that maybe he didn't find one that suited him. So
What's
he
your what's
just
your
kept trying.
what's your opinion? What's your? I can ask both of you. What's your? Because this kind of has the some. It's in the same ballpark of what we're talking about. What is your opinion on um, the like? I want to say not really panspermia, but more like that we were seeded. on this earth as a, you know,
Is a science project?
yeah, I guess you can call that, yeah. Not really, not really a prison planet, I guess, but more of a science. I'll say a prison. I'll say a science project, or more like a just seeded to keep a race from dying off on another, you know, another planet or something like that. That
What
we
do you
are
think?
actually,
I
Yeah.
believe we were seated here because I think that Noah's Ark could be an interpretation of a seed ship. Could be.
What do you think, Marianne?
I mean, I know nothing about the Bible, so
yeah,
Well,
I
do you,
mean,
I guess maybe just going even without that.
it's
Do
not
you
really
think
biblical.
that do you
It's not
think
really
that we
biblical though.
were? Do you think it's possible that we're not originally from here? That we were like they're talking about, like a science project, or like you know, I don't think it would be a penal thing, but it would explain a lot about a lot of us. So you know,
I
well,
mean, the prison
or
planet
colonies, or
is a theory,
colonies.
but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we colonized everywhere, or we have in the past. Look at England; they colonized everything. So maybe that's a genetic factor.
if I'm following the species of human being, just like the species of Palladian or any other ET, is there's the sole purpose is to consciously evolve and learn.
Hmm.
And so our sole purpose is simply that, to evolve and learn. I don't believe that. I personally, from my experience through meditation and channeling, has never been that we were placed here as like that we were placed here. Let me just say that
Okay.
we were placed, that we, where we come from, that's a other conversation, I guess, but we there isn't this sense of, experimentation or punishment, or it's just consciousness,
Right.
and we're all here to learn. And on planet Earth in particular, it's a one room schoolhouse. So you have all ages, you have all levels. And so you've got first graders at a consciousness, 10th graders at a level of consciousness, all on one planet. Whereas some planets, everyone's in the same on the same level of consciousness, like Palladians and like other groups that are evolved. And so it's just human beings. We have free will, and free will is the choice to become conscious and remember who we are or not.
Right.
And so that may implode the planet Earth, it may not. We may evolve, but I have never experienced or felt that it was for any other reason other than learning. Consciousness is about learning, and we've all been through so many lifetimes that come from the past, that come from the future. And so it's about remembering all those lifetimes and then incorporating that consciousness into this lifetime, and then sharing and teaching that on whatever level that you share and teach. For me,
I like
that
that.
kind of as simple as it is. I don't feel like there's anything darker or deeper to it. Now, every situation has darker and deeper and crazy and weird scenarios, but the
Yeah.
overreaching arc is just, we're just here to learn. And there's been plenty of other groups that have told me they won't come to planet Earth because it's so toxic, and emotionally, physically.
Can't say I
And
You got that right.
so that just tells you, we're just here to figure stuff out.
Okay,
Yes.
I do have another question though. Okay, I'm picking your guys. You guys are the experts at this. I'm just like a
Uh,
novice.
I'm
So
just here for the party. They
yeah.
said there'd be beer.
So we need to raise our vibration to to get to that next level. Um, through your channelings or whoever, it could either be Kat or Maryam.
That's Maryam.
Um, which is there particular um, ET races out there that are working behind the scenes to keep us from ascending? Are they that you know of through your channels? Is there certain like is it the reptilians or the Dracos? Or I mean, which ones are here trying to hold us down, try to keep us from raising our vibration to get to that next level? Do you know of any
Yeah,
that are actually?
the human
Okay.
being.
So you don't think there's any ET races, any ones that are working behind the scenes with governments or whatever, trying to hold us back?
Hmm. Yeah, of course, but that here's a little secret. When you have ET groups that are trying to hold you down, all you need to do is meet them where they're at. When you have human beings trying to hold you down, now we're dealing with daddy issue, mommy issue, the emotional body that the
Yeah.
human being has, and then being able to bypass the emotional body to get to your state of understanding. You do that through meditation. That's what meditation is for, is to quiet the emotional body so you can hear your consciousness and you can hear your communication.
Yeah.
So when we look at an outside source as being something that would hold us down, it will never be as strong as what a human being is capable of, human to human. Because when we work with an ET group, we aren't dealing with mommy issue, daddy issue, and emotional body. We're dealing with a consciousness that has evolved enough that it can bypass that.
Hmm.
And then our own brain will just immediately go to, well, that's not something I recognize or know. So I'm going to deal with that differently than I would with this mean man who won't let me, take a vacation with my family and won't pay me for it, or
Right.
my daddy who hurt me or beat me, God forbid, or whatever that is, right? And so at the end of the day, what or who holds humans down is the emotional body. I'm not saying it's bad and I'm not saying don't use it. I'm saying learn how to use it and learn how to quiet it so you can raise your vibration. And humans that we put into power because we have decided someone wealthy, someone famous, or someone that we think is smarter than us should be in power. That is what holds us down, not ETs.
And the
Now,
thing is, I'm sorry, and the thing is, if we raise our vibration, those those races, those bad ETs can't can't come here. They won't be able to function if we can raise our vibration on Earth. Do you think they'd be able to survive
yeah, so
on
think of
Earth?
it this way. If you have someone who is a someone who steals for a living, right? They're going to go to where you can steal. And
Yeah,
if you can't steal from a certain location, you won't
no,
go there.
then we'll go there. Yeah,
And so you can compare ET life and paranormal life to the same thing about human behavior. If you allow it to be there, it will be there. Now, on planet Earth, now this is science, so I don't know science, but we do know that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction,
Mhm.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's
true.
planet Earth. So anytime you raise your vibration, you will have an equal and opposite. So what's the equal and opposite? Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Inevitable. Inevitable. You try to raise your vibration, someone or something or some experience will try and hold you down. That's not anything against you. It's the nature of the planet.
they could be. Yeah,
Now, once we get off this planet, that's going to look very different. That can look different. But for us here, yeah, you'll always have. I'm more concerned with always have been more concerned with humans than with ETs. Now,
today, what's been happening since November, very different conversation. And even me, as Kat laughs because she gets it, there's more of a sense of I don't know that I want to see that one. Like, this is a different time for us, so we have to be so aware and conscious of human, ET. Where am I? Am I managing me? It's a lot now.
Yeah.
Well, I do agree with something that you said at the top of the show about us not being ready to accept aliens on this planet, or say we have like a visitation, a public visitation. I don't think we're ready to handle that either. Kat, Phil, what do you guys think? Do you think that we're ready? And also, I want to make this a two-part question. What do you think it would take for us to get ready and accept it and not go all, riots and crazy and all of that stuff?
I mean, we're trying to kill each. We're trying to kill each other as humans. Just imagine what would happen if you know, foreign, an alien tried to come here. I don't. I, I look at the ET like, go, man, they're probably like a guy. They're probably like a group that's rolling by planet Earth, rolling their windows up and locking their doors as
Locking their doors. Yeah.
and I, I don't know. I mean, they probably wouldn't believe it. They would probably think it's some government conspiracy or something.
Oh, I don't think so. I think that when that happens,
You think
that
it'll be natural, like, wow, we knew this was,
I think that it's going to be, and I swear to goodness, there is so much vitriol out there in the world right now. It's ridiculous. People are so reactionary from every walk of life. Everybody's just like hair on fire. Okay. Get control of yourself and just interact and everybody get along. It's just got to be calmer. But it's just a matter of if they were to come right this red hot minute, either we would all kill each other in our panic
Mhm.
and or we would view them as saviors
Hmm.
and we would be very easy to take over if they had bad intent. If they didn't have bad intent and were coming to help, then I think that there are some that would absolutely have a fit about it and try to kill all of them. You
Mhm.
know, I find it interesting that
So with that line of thinking, when you go back several thousand years ago, when aliens were said to have been visiting us, back then they were viewed as saviors and
yeah,
gods. But at
yeah,
the time, they were being taught how to build things. With the pyramids, you got,
yes. I mean, they were being taught to have civilizations.
yes.
I mean, they were being taught water systems. They were being taught, yeah, aqueducts.
Mhm.
All this stuff in a desert where there wasn't a lot to survive with,
Hmm.
widespread. And
And
the
the evidence.
pyramids are fascinating because they're not, I mean, they are not always, Orion's belt is not always over the pyramids. It's
Hmm.
seasonal, right?
yeah,
Right.
So that probably is not what the purpose of placement of those were. The Nile actually was much there. Its path was different.
Hmm.
yeah.
So one of my friends actually has the theory that the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, was a water pump,
Hmm.
which to me is just I had never even contemplated that idea until I read his book, and I've interviewed him a couple of times. It's really interesting, but you know, geography changes over
Yes.
time.
Hmm.
So, heck,
That
I
well,
don't know. I
that's
think that
why
what,
we're still discovering new things every day.
and we're discovering old things every day.
Mhm. That's
I mean,
good. We are
Yeah.
discovering old things every day. That's great.
So, I mean, and that old saying, everything old is new again, is so true. It's not just bell bottoms. I mean, seriously, it's thought processes, it's mindsets, it's, you know, the only thing I know that's constant is mathematics.
Hmm.
And I think that's probably the language that we're going to be speaking with ETs when we meet them,
And
some
death
of
and
them,
taxes.
because it's a constant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it doesn't seem to change very much until we got into computation.
Yeah.
I think that's such a. I love the way you said all of that, Kat. I think too, Jeremy, to that point is, you know, I feel like I know what your question was in reference to like a mass. You know, they come en masse, and it's like a whole thing. But it, they're landing, and they landed in Vegas.
They
They're
currently land.
landing. And
Yeah.
in this moment, we're talking to the people are talking to the orbs, and the orbs are responding. Like this is what, like, I keep saying, I'm like, what, Jeremy, your question you're asking us? It's happening. It's
Yeah.
happening right now. And it has been happening. People have witnessed and seen. And guess what happens? Everyone squashes it. No
Hmm.
one will believe you, whatever that is, right? But as
Yes.
we start to one at a time raise the consciousness, which is happening faster because these people are communicating with orbs, and it's shifting their consciousness in seconds. In seconds, it's shifting them. And that's happening because this all has to happen very quickly. I don't know which way we're going to go. No one knows which way we're going to go. But it's happening right now in front of us. They're landing, and a lot of them are landing and posing as human, coming back out. Keep an eye out for humans that have like a,
Yeah.
it's like a, dull, almost dark look in their eye. I don't mean dark like necessarily bad.
Not like black eyed, but
Some of them are coming in.
not unlike it.
There
Yeah,
have been some people that I've come across, and I'm like, there is no way in hell you're.
but it's going to be a feeling. It's not going
Yes,
to
it's
be
not a
a
visual.
visual. It's something like you're going to feel as they walk by. You're going to feel it not from here. And you're not going to
Yes.
feel fear from it. It's just going to be an intuitive, guttural, what was that? Or
Well,
who was
and they're not going to look different. I mean, they're not going to be like the men in black with the weird shifting. The eyes are different.
It's like
I
what Eric
will go,
said, Men in
yeah,
Black.
but most of them look human because some of, I mean, the ones that and I may be wrong, Marianne. I'm kind
not?
of stepping on that, and I apologize.
Mm-mm.
But I think that the hybrids are going to lead the way, and I know hybrids. I mean, I've met them in different places, and so it's kind of an interesting thing. I was walking through a conference with someone who's very into hybrid children, and this girl was in a wheelchair, and her mother was pushing her and trying to get through the crowd and stuff. And you could look at that girl and know. And in fact, the woman I was walking with just bent down and cupped her face and looked up at her mom and said, "Really?" And her mom was like, "Well, yeah." And it was one of those things that I'd never seen that I was aware of.
How
But
did
there,
you know? Was it a feeling, or was there an actual look?
it was both. The eyes were green with a lot of gold, and not unlike the eyes behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the colors, but a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more gold.
Mm-hmm.
And the she glowed, and
Really?
she was wheelchair bound.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hmm.
it was it was, but the mom's face was kind of like, yeah, you know. And the woman was very famous in the UFO field
The
and
mother.
would have known that. Not the mother, the woman I was walking with.
Oh.
And so when I mean, because she just stopped and bent down because this child well, she was an adolescent, had caught her so off guard. But it was at an experiencer, and it was a very strong conference. And so it was nothing. I had not really had a lot of experience with experiencers prior to that. And I went I went to the group because I am one. You know,
Mhm.
that craft really blew me away, and some other stuff after that. So it was interesting to me to hear other people talk about it. And it was very mind opening for me
Mm.
because even, and I had an experience when I was like in sixth grade too, but it was such a weird thing that I feel like maybe I've had more experiences that I don't acknowledge
Mhm.
because they didn't fit the narrative. And I think
Mhm.
that's what we're going to find if they start really showing up here in the near future. I think that if we don't start getting some intervention, we're going to have, we already have bad actors that are doing things. You know, um, Maui wasn't natural, LA wasn't natural. Um, Phoenix has just had a thing where they're trying to set up, they've come up with a plan to be a smart city like LA was designing. And this week, State Farm canceled fire insurance in Phoenix.
Oh, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
You said smart city. What do you mean by that?
Um, just like we have smartphones and like very, very digitally integrated, light rail being the primary source of, I mean, they are smart. It's like the way that a city would be in the Jetsons period, but without the flying cars yet. So
Okay,
it's
can I
just,
ask you something?
sure.
What I have to interrupt because I have to ask this. I okay, so first off, when you said you don't know if you're correct, you're stepping on. You're correct. You're experiencing and discussing something. So what I was describing is beings, ETs that can morph into human and then morph out.
Yeah.
You're describing, if I'm correct, actual, like, are these people having sex with ETs and they're having a baby? Is
Yeah.
that what you're talking about? Okay,
Either that or implantation.
okay, okay,
But
okay.
I know two women who have had children by aliens that were taken.
The babies were taken.
Yeah. One of them still sees her son
The babies were taken by the aliens?
by the, in that particular woman's case, by the father that she had a relationship with because he is alien and looks alien. So he lives with his father, but the father brings him to visit her. She said she
Like,
wrote a book about it.
these are the ET days of our lives. What,
Pretty much, yeah. But the other person had a pregnancy that the child disappeared. You know, the phantom pregnancy that people
yeah,
have
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
And so I asked, because of my experience with the first person, um, I, in a private conversation, asked my friend if she had ever seen that child, if she felt like she had ever seen that child.
Mhm.
And she just kind of looked at me like I'd lost a mind or grown ears that, pointed or whatever.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I thought I did once because there was a young woman hiding behind a car watching me. And I thought that was my daughter. And I said, did you feel drawn to her? And she said, I did. That was my daughter. And so those are two people that I know. One went public with hers, very public with hers. And the other one was an experiencer with a disappearing fetus and saw someone that she felt was that child years later.
Where'd you go, Phil?
Wow. Did
So
you just get abducted? abducted. That's incredible. Okay, so what I want to say to that though is this is what's so fascinating about life is everything you're saying is like, and everything I'm saying, it's not, but it's like it's two different worlds, but they're both happening, and
But I
they're
mean,
both,
I don't know if they're two different worlds because if they're here, why would they not interact and maybe get involved? I mean, it doesn't have to be falling in love, but being involved maybe.
I think
And
by two different worlds is like for this is purely my for me it's like there's people like me who communicate with ETs, and
mhm,
like for me I'll help people who have been abducted to stop the abductions and stop that connection, blah blah. But then there's this whole other world of like
yeah,
everything you're saying, and that's a different world than what I've been in, and this is incredible.
well,
That's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying. It's like so crazy.
but they're physical beings, and apparently they have emotion too. So it's not, they're not just spiritual interactions all the time.
But see, here's the thing that where I think I haven't landed on it yet, but where I see it's two different worlds. I I don't like I don't like that behavior. I don't like it
I would
being,
agree with that.
and so that isn't, and I'm not telling you this, I'm talking this out with you. That
Oh no, I'm not taking offense. I'm enjoying this. So
that's not a spiritual experience. That
no,
to me is
that is not
no
spiritual.
different than what happens on planet Earth if a woman is taken advantage of, raped, whatever,
Yes.
right? And you're being violated. There's this article this friend sent me just last week, and maybe you know who this person is. He draws these ETs, and they're
Mhm.
hybrid ETs,
Mhm.
but he had experiences as a child, and then they started mating with him. Well, that is
It
inappropriate.
isn't. Well, I would agree with that because these are not human beings. Okay. And they do have, I don't argue that at all. I do think it's violating.
That
And
and
the person who had the disappearing fetus
uh huh.
experience, and that happens a whole lot. It really does. And so it's almost like a, well, that's not going to sound appropriate, but it's almost like a seeding
Uh huh.
program.
Uh huh.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But in the first case, it was somebody who had a relationship with an ET.
Uh huh.
And in the second case, it was not. It wasn't an abduction
Mm.
and type of experience. But
Wow.
it's really interesting to me because I I found this so hard to grasp
Mm-hmm.
when I first read the book that the first person put out. And I had heard her lecture. She was very timid with her first. It was her first lecture, and she
Mm-hmm.
was very timid in that scenario. And I was just kind of like, "Why are you talking about it?"
Mm.
You know. And she was with a great, greatly known UFO researcher
Mm-hmm.
who works with um, abductees, and and does a lot of other stuff too. He's very involved in a lot of different things. And I was just kind of like, she doesn't want to talk about this. Yet
Mm.
she's got a book out. And I had her on with me years ago and she tripped out. She wanted me to pull the show down,
Really?
really. And I said, well, but you've put out a book about this. This
Right.
isn't something that you're not talking about. What's different?
Right.
Why? I mean, I'll pull it down, but why are you upset?
Yeah.
Maybe she added something to the show that wasn't originally in the book.
That could well be. I didn't go back through it.
Did she tell
And
answer that question that you asked her?
hmm,
Did she answer that question that you just
mm-mm.
asked her?
No,
No.
she just needed it to come down.
Wow.
And she had 2 or 3 different reasons that were not true. And I was just kind of like, well, that's not real. I mean, she didn't sound right. She sounded, you know, and then she said that somebody affiliated with that case had passed away the day before, which also was not the case. And so that she was upset.
Oh, dear.
And there was a lot of angst going on.
Mm.
And I was just kind of like, I'm sorry that you're feeling this way. I thought you did a really good job and nobody's judging you. I've talked to
Right.
you for years. I'm not judging you. And it was weird,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
So to be so public with it that you would actually document your experience and then go on a lecture circuit to talk about it
Right.
and then be upset about that was just kind of
Mhm.
like very odd. And it's funny because I had to change my profile name because
Why?
I got hacked, like everything hacked, financials, the whole bit from through Facebook. And so she found me and sent me a friend request after all these years.
No kidding.
Totally real. And I was just kind of like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Oh, you
Nice
like
to
to
see you.
talk again?
But yeah, so
That's
there
incredible.
yeah, but I agree with you on the inappropriateness of a relationship when you're in a position of not authority but a more powerful position. It's just like if you were being
Yeah.
attacked by like you're being raped.
Yeah.
But, but if you're just emotionally unaware as opposed to physically unable to fight, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think in the case of the second one, that was not a willing participant.
Mm.
That was a classic um, ET experience, and that happens a lot. There's a
Wow.
lot of that behavior by ETs. And so, and she was stunned when I asked that question, right? Have you ever seen that child?
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
and she just went, um, I actually thought that I might have, yeah.
Jeez. That poor
So,
woman.
and yeah, there's a whole lot that goes with, um, there's a whole lot that goes with ET interaction.
Mhm.
You have people that come out of it with horrible memories.
Mhm.
You have people that maybe the anesthesia or whatever it is that they use, right,
Mhm.
to do whatever. Um, because there's so many abductees who have scoop marks where samples are taken. There's
Oh
so
god.
many. I mean, there's so much experimentation done on us
Right.
that is not appropriate, no matter who you are. I mean, if my doctor did that without me knowing about it, I'd own him, right? So it's really there's so much. The interactions are so different. What
Mhm.
I get isn't what I hear other people talk about.
Mhm.
And I think it's because I go to all these places that have experiencer groups.
Mm.
And it's it's really tragic what happens to a lot of people, men, women. A friend of mine was camping as a military person with another friend. They'd gone hiking and camped out that night and had the big black rectangle, not, yeah, come over the cube. It's not a cube, but it's they saw it coming across a field,
Mm.
and then they didn't remember anything until the next morning. And my friend got up and opened rolled up the tent window and was looking out, and his friend started tripping on him. Don't do that. They'll come back. They'll know.
Oh
And
wow.
his friend was not okay in any shape, form, or fashion.
Mhm.
And my friend was.
Mm.
And he didn't remember anything.
Wow.
So then they, my friend was out running one day and had pain in his leg and he had implants. And it's funny because they were in the design.
Hmm.
And I was at a conference in Arizona, and one of the people lecturing had pictures of x rays
Hmm.
of their implants, and they were the same design as
Oh,
my
oh
friend.
wow. Oh
And
wow.
I was like, is this a thing? So
Wow.
I started listening more, and apparently it is.
Yeah.
So,
It's
I,
incredible.
it's crazy. It's really interaction with ETs are such an individual thing.
Hmm. Of
I mean,
course.
because it depends on your fear factor. If
Hmm.
you're comfortable with seeing them,
Hmm.
if you if you've been interacting from childhood
Hmm.
on, or if it's something that was a one-time thing and it just destroyed you psychologically.
Right.
Those people in Vegas that saw that one take off,
Hmm.
they didn't know what to think.
Right.
And
I know.
that was on a cop's camera.
That
You
was
know, that was a trained observer that saw that.
that was
And
incredible.
I
J-
mean, it's so wild, right?
Incredible. What happened to Philip?
he told me that something happened on his end. Um, he's trying to get back on.
Okay. I have to go walk my dogs.
I'm trying to read. Can you read Jenny Sullivan's
Right now,
question because she's getting upset that nobody's answering her and I don't have my glasses on?
I don't
yeah,
have my
she's asking about an ET interaction
Maybe
or
that's interaction.
interaction um, was an example of being raped. So that's what she's asking.
Oh, what's an example of it?
No, an ET interaction was an example of being raped. Did she get that right?
Oh, the example of being raped is somebody impregnating you without your permission and your knowledge that it was happening.
Well, no, she's asking about the alien part.
that. Can an alien do that to you? Can an alien is she asking can an alien rape you? If that's the question, then yes. We
That would
know
be a yes.
yeah.
Because, and that is actually, you might not know that happened because there is a level of mind control involved, from what I understand.
Hmm.
But I don't really know if they have to physically rape you.
I've heard stories that it actually has there's both what you're saying that they
Right.
have memory and yes it physically happens. I mean
Right.
um, and I mean it's just what you were talking about. There's these hybrids and women's babies are being taken from them. Like
Yes.
none of that is
Well,
like if that happened here and I'm not I'm it does
yes.
happen in, but it's
Areas. Yeah.
it's wrong across the board.
Well, it
So
is wrong across the board.
Yes.
But a lot of times these women don't know that they're pregnant
mhm,
until some time has passed.
mhm.
And then, and then when it disappears, it's like,
Then
and
what?
it actually is called disappearing fetus syndrome.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta look that up.
So,
That's amazing.
and Hodges, the man that Bud, I think it's Bud Hodges, that did the regression therapy with
Mhm,
abductees.
mhm.
Um, there were a lot of those situations.
Wow. Yeah,
So
I, I I can imagine. I feel like I want to talk about this all night, but I have to go walk my dogs.
mine
Cat,
are in there with my husband, so I
cat,
dish them.
We
how do
could do several episodes of this.
Well,
I
I'm
want to
up.
get info, Cat? And did Jeremy? Did you email all of us? Do I have her email?
No, you were the only one that I emailed because you're not on Facebook.
And
Um,
Okay.
I'm Kathryn. Oh, you're not on Facebook? Paranormal Experienced. That
Are you on Instagram?
under Kathryn Hobson.
Okay, I'm gonna look you up and friend you so we can stay connected.
Please do, because I would love that.
Yes, me too. I want to. There's a lot going on here. Jeremy,
I can see Catherine being, or I can see Maryam being a guest on Catherine's show.
I see that coming up in the near future. Yes.
being friends, being
Well,
each
we're
friend.
already friends. This kind of built that right up. We're just going to build on it.
Oh,
So
okay,
this
you
is
guys. Jeremy, thank you.
Oh, it's great having you guys on here. I will let Phil know that we're wrapping up. He was having some issues.
But will you also send me Philip's info? How can I find him? Because I want to get him that book and stuff.
I don't know of any emails of his. I can.
Just have him reach out. Just give him my email and have him reach out to me.
Okay, I can do that.
Please.
he can give me
Okay.
yours too, and I can send you mine.
Yes, I'll do it through Insta. I'll look you up on Insta.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks you guys. That
Thank
was
you.
amazing.
I had so much fun. It's so nice to meet you.
You too. I know.
I'm looking
Okay,
forward to more conversations.
100%. There's so much to talk about.
There is. We have so many interests and so many similarities. It'll be fun.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you,
show has
Jeremy.
gone on for about 2 hours and 20 minutes. I did not expect this to go as.
I know. I
Well, thank
know.
you for doing it, Jeremy.
I
I know.
was telling Philip earlier today, if I can get 1 hour out of you guys, I'd be happy. Anything beyond that, I'm good.
Dude, we got 2 more hours in us. So we just started.
Yeah, we just got started. Okay, this just started happening. We're gonna have to do more.
Yeah, and I need to get to bed because I got a long day tomorrow.
Yeah, but thank you. Good night.
Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for playing along, and I don't know when the next episode of 13th Dimension will be. Hopefully, real soon. But until then, you guys have a good night and have a good weekend.